My name is Angela K. Smith. I'm Professor of Modern Literature in the Department of English and Creative Writing, which is part of the School of Humanities and Performing Arts. Since the centenary of the First World War began in 2014, I've been thinking very much about ideas of experience and memory, the ways in which we remember the war now, and the ways in which contemporary writers write about the war now. Published a number of books on the First World War, including an anthology of contemporary women's writings, and a book that explores the relationship between the First World War and the women's suffrage movement. My most recent book is called Women of the Eastern Front: War Writing and Experience in Serbia and Russia between 1914 and 1920, looks at the adventures and exploits of British women on this little-known battlefront. One example is Mabel Sinclair Stobart. She was born in 1862, so by the time the First World War broke out in 1914, she was in her 50s, quite mature for the kind of exploits that she got up to. But she had a history of adventure. In the early part of the 20th century, she'd been a frontier farmer in South Africa. When she returned from South Africa, she'd worked with the suffrage movement and then set up the Women's Sick and Wounded Convoy Corps, which was a unit designed solely to show how women could do their bit in times of war. When the war broke out, Mabel took one of her units to Belgium, but Belgium was quickly overrun by Germans and she was captured and almost shot as a spy. In 1915, after her return from Belgium, she took the 3rd Serbian Relief Fund over to Serbia. This was another hospital unit staffed by women doctors and women nurses. The only man on the staff was her husband. They worked in Serbia throughout the summer of 1915, and then in the autumn, when Serbia was invaded by the armies of Germany, Austria and Bulgaria, her unit joined the Great Serbian Retreat. By this point, she was a major with the Serbian army and in command of her own troops. She was the only commander on the retreat to get her unit across without losing a single life. All this work on the First World War, all these incredible stories have fed into my teaching in all sorts of ways over the years. I run a postgraduate module called The Impact of Modernity: War Writing from 1850 to 1950. It's a really interesting part of my job to work with PhD students who want to think about war writing in all sorts of different fields. I run an undergraduate module called War Writing since 1914, which explores the activities and the writings of men and women, not just in the First World War, but also the Second World War, Vietnam, Iraq and beyond.